Another Country is a novel written by American civil rights author James Baldwin. The novel is set in New York City in the late 1950s. The novel tells the story of an interracial friend group of musicians, writers, and actors, and how their professional, personal, romantic, and sexual lives continue following the suicide of their dear friend Rufus, a black jazz musician. Like lots of novels written by James Baldwin, the book explores many themes, including, but not limited to, institutionalized racism, interracial relationships, gender roles, sexual identity, and monogamy. James Baldwin uses many literary devices in the novel, which enhance the novel's effectiveness in exploring its themes. For example, James Baldwin employs the use of symbolism in the novel throughout his use of the color gray. The color gray is used to symbolize something lifeless or dreary. It is used to describe physical objects you would expect a color to be attributed to, like clothing, lights, but it also shows objects which would not normally be described with color, like a day, mood, street, or facial expression. The following passages are examples of the use of this symbolism. The cab sped uptown, past men in front of barber shops, in front of barbecue joints, in front of bars, sped past side streets, long, dark, noisome, with gray houses, looking forward to cut out the sky, and in the shadows of these houses, children buzzed and boomed as thick as flies on a long gray street. Or, the gray pavement danced and gleamed and sloped. And I'd betrayed myself and you and everything of value, everything anyway that one aspires to become. One doesn't want to simply be another gray, shapeless monster. Similes, metaphors, and onomatopoeias are all used heavily throughout the novel. For example, the following phrase uses all three at once. The rain poured down like a wall. It struck the pavements with a vicious sound and spattered in the swollen gutters with the force of bullets. One of the most interesting and effective uses of literary devices in the book takes place at the beginning and is where the main theme of the book is introduced. Rufus is describing the quality of the saxophone player's solo during a gig. He was feeling great, and during the last set he came doubly alive because the saxophone player, who had been way out all night, took a terrific solo. He was a kid about the same age as Rufus, from some insane place like Jersey City or Syracuse. But somewhere along the line, he had discovered he could say it with a saxophone. He had a lot to say. He stood there, wide-legged, humping the air, filling his barrel chest, shivering in the rages of his 20-odd years, and screaming through his horn, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" And again, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" This anyway was a question Rufus heard, the same phrase unbearably, endlessly, and viciously repeated with all the force the boy had. This unorthodox and cunning use of an onomatopoeia, by placing a lyrical phrase to the line played by the saxophone player, introduces the main theme explored throughout the rest of the novel. Each of the main characters throughout the novel show the vicious desire to love and be loved with the same intensity as the saxophone player blows his line. Through their desire to be loved, the reader learns that love, in its purest form, is impossibly complicated, and the choice of who a person invests their love in and how they show that love is tainted by race relations, power dynamics, economic standing, and gender roles. The reader's understanding of this main theme and others in the novel is enhanced when the novel is viewed through many different literary lenses. For example, when viewed through the feminist perspective, the reader gains insights into how gender roles and power dynamics in society may limit or interfere with how women choose partners. This is demonstrated in many ways throughout the novel, but perhaps none more powerfully or concise than in Ida's confession of her affair with Ellis to Vivaldo. It's funny the way things work. If it hadn't have been for you, I don't think Ellis would ever have got so hung up on me. He saw, better than I did, that I really liked you, and that means that I could really like somebody, and so why not him, since he could give so much more? And I thought so too, that it was kind of a dirty trick for life to play on me, for me to like you better than I liked him. Because Ida had no choice but to succeed as a singer, she needed what Ellis could offer her in the music business. This passage highlights the theme by showing that the ability to pick and choose a partner based only on the purest form of love is a privilege a lot of the world does not have the luxury of. Aside from aiding in the main theme of the book, when viewed through the feminist perspective, this passage also highlights the dim regard of gender roles and relations Ellis has in the way he uses Ida as a pawn to fight a vendetta with Vivaldo. It also highlights the power dynamics between a powerful man and how he uses his power as coercion to have a sexual relationship with a female colleague. When viewed through a Marxist perspective, the theme that partnership, or true love, or romance is a luxury of the privileged is enhanced. If Ida had been a wealthy member of the bourgeoisie, and she had all the resources in the world to assist in her singing career, she could have wholly picked Vivaldo as her partner. Furthering the Marxist perspective, the idea that romance is a luxury and even a commodity for sale to the bourgeoisie is strengthened when examining the city of Paris and its place in Yev's and Eric's relationship. Paris is thought around the world as a city of love, a haven of romance and lush. In the following passage, showing Eric's thoughts as he is preparing to leave Paris, we see he thinks of this as a facade. Contrary to its legend, Paris does not offer many distractions, or those distractions that it does offer are like French pastry, vivid and insubstantial, sweet on the tongue and sour in the belly. The literary perspective of New Historicism allows the reader to explore an important aspect of the main theme, that love in its purest form is impossibly complicated, and the choice of a person who invests their love in and how they show that love is tainted by race relations, power dynamics, and economic standings and gender roles. First, the novel contains multiple interracial couples and deeply explores the racial tensions in New York City at the time the novel took place, the internal factors of racial relations, and how the external racial identity of the characters affect these interracial relationships. The novel contains many explorations of the internal struggles of the characters in interracial couples. In each of the interracial relationships, the characters explore their own racial prejudice or hang-ups. The black characters deal with the reality and anger of a white-dominated society, while the white characters comes to terms with their privilege and attempt to understand the realities of being black in the 1950s in New York. Both parties work to separate their partner for the sake of love from the complexities that exist in race relations. One example of this is shown in the scene between Ida and Vivaldo. He was silent for a moment. Then, "You're never going to forgive me, are you, for your brother's death?" Then she too was silent. He said, "I loved your brother too, Ida. You don't believe that, I know, but I did. But he was just a man, baby. He wasn't a saint." "I never said he was a saint, but I'm black too, and I know how white people treat black boys and girls. They think you're something for them to wipe their pricks on." He saw the lights of the movie theater 3 blocks down the avenue. The summer streets were full. His throat closed and his eyes began to burn. "After all this time we've been together," he said, at last, "you still think that?" "Our being together doesn't change the world, Vivaldo." "It does," he said, "for me." "That," she said, "is because you're white." The external factors, or the judgment and racism the interracial couples faced, are shown in the following passage describing Ida and Vivaldo walking together. Now, as she walked beside him, trim and oddly elegant, in a heavy dark blue coat, and with her head covered by an old-fashioned and rather theatrical shawl, he saw that both her vanity and her contempt were being swollen by the glances which rested on her as briefly and unforgettable as the touch of a whip. She was very, very dark. She was beautiful, and he was proud to be with her, artlessly proud, in the shining, overt male way. But the eyes, as they passed, accused him, looked at her, then looked at him. They looked at her as though she were no better though more lascivious and rare than a whore. And then the eyes of the men sought his, inviting a wet complicity. This passage shows the judgment and prejudice faced publicly as an interracial couple. In conclusion, the novel Another Country is a deep and complex novel, weaving together many complicated aspects of the human experience to highlight the main theme that love, in its purest form, is impossibly complicated, and the choice of who a person invests their love in and how they show that love is tainted by race relations, power dynamics, economic standing, and gender roles. James Baldwin uses literary techniques such as symbolism, similes, metaphors, and onomatopoeias to enhance the impact of these themes. The reader's understanding is also enhanced when the novel is viewed through a feminist, Marxist, and New Historicism perspective.